It took 7 years, but Rick and his merry band of Walker Slayers finally met their match, and his baseball bat. I'm Kyle with Cinematica, and we're taking a stroll down Easy Street to learn how AMC brought Robert Kirkman's darkest, most brutal arc to life. You can breathe, you can blink, you can cry, for 107 facts about The Walking Dead Season 7.
Hot diggity dog!
But be warned, we've got spoilers ahead. Let's get started. If this season turned the waterworks on for you, don't worry, you're in good company. Andrew Lincoln and Norman Reedus also spend a lot of time this season crying. This was done on purpose to show just how bad things have become for their tough characters. In fact, according to Reedus, the two of them can just look at each other and it'll make the other start crying. It's not all tears on set though. XANDER BERKELEY is apparently a great improviser and would frequently keep the cast laughing with his spontaneous wisecracks. He'd especially mess with Andrew Lincoln, tossing in little lines like, "Richie, Ricky." Jeffrey Dean Morgan also gets a kick out of screwing with Lincoln. Since the British actor keeps up his American accent even when the cameras aren't rolling, Morgan is always trying to get him to break character. It's just like Negan and Rick. Talk about method acting. It's all good between Morgan and Lincoln though. In fact, they'd sometimes end their scenes together by hugging. This shocked the rest of the cast and crew, who were used to seeing Lincoln drive himself into a dark place character-wise and then get stuck there. To get into character this season, Lincoln listened to Radiohead and David Bowie. He said that he had the song Black Star on quite a bit during the first 2 episodes. Give the song a listen and you'll see why. Josh McDermott, on the other hand, found it harder to listen to music when he was in character this season. He'd get so deep into Eugene's character that music began to sound different to him, so he'd drive home at the end of the day in silence, probably with a scared, vacant stare. And with good reason, too. The season premiere was only the 3rd time that 2 series regulars were killed off in the same episode.
Back to it.
The other times being Herschel and the Governor in Too Far Gone, and Gareth and Bob in 4 Walls and a Roof, and half of those characters were bad guys. And let's not forget that Glenn's been on the show since Season 1. The last Season 1 character to be killed off was Andrea in Welcome to the Tomb, which was 4 seasons ago. The title of the episode, The Day Will Come When You Won't Be, is a reference to Season 1 too. It's a callback to Jenner's warning to Rick at the CDC and TS-19.
The day will come when you won't be.
According to director Greg Nicotero, it's because this episode sees Rick and his crew in a place of helplessness, being given the choice to give up or fight back, just like in TS-19. Before the episode aired, several places reported that the episode would be titled Signs. The walkers on Rick and Negan's field trip paid homage to a couple other horror movies. Nicotero said that their emergence from the smoke was a reference to John Carpenter and a scene from the movie The Funhouse. The writers tried to avoid killing off Glenn, but there were too many storylines that hinged on it. According to Robert Kirkman, so much of who Rick, Negan, and Maggie become are dependent on Glenn's death in this moment, so sparing him just didn't work for the story. Even Andrew Lincoln tried to find a way around their deaths. He wrote countless emails to showrunner Scott Gimple in an attempt to spare their lives, but Gimple wouldn't budge. You just can't reason with death. It gets even more awkward because Kirkman wrote Glenn's death after Steven Yeun was already cast. It was the first death he wrote after the show started, so he felt bad for knowingly cutting Yeun's time short. Yeun wouldn't have wanted anyone else to steal Glenn's death though. It's such an iconic moment in the comics that Yeun wanted to keep the honor of having his brains beaten out. So in the same way, Glenn's death wasn't a surprise to Yeun, nor was Abraham's death a surprise to Michael CUDLITZ. In fact, Scott Gimple told both of them as early as July 2015 that they would be biting the bat sometime around the end of Season 6 or early Season 7. To keep the deaths a surprise to the fans, however, the crew filmed death scenes for every single character in the lineup. These red herrings got put to good use in the episode itself as Rick imagines everyone on his team being beaten down by Negan. They even shot a death scene for episode director Greg Nicotero. He thought it was only fair since he made everyone else get hit that day. Andrew Lincoln had the honor of clobbering Nicotero, at least until Jeffrey Dean Morgan saw and decided to take a swing too. Leave it to the professional. One of the death scenes actually ended up leaking. The sequence shows Maggie at the receiving end of Lucille, taking it like a champ and spitting blood at Negan. This leak was likely done on purpose by AMC to divert expectations of the real deaths. Every single cast member stayed on set for support for the entire duration of the shoot, even during the baseball bat beatdown inserts. According to Scott Gimple, GIMPLE, the atmosphere on set was cold since everyone knew they were losing 2 friends and co-workers. Of course, they were shooting in Atlanta, so it wasn't literally cold. Jeffrey Dean Morgan actually had ice packs hidden inside his leather jacket to beat the heat, since it's certainly not leather jacket weather. The prior knowledge of their characters' deaths helped motivate the actors in their last scenes together. For example, Michael CUDLITZ knew that his breakup with Rosita, or his send-off to Eugene, would be among his last times working with them, which loaded up these parts with genuine dramatic subtext. As for his final goodbye to Sasha, Abraham was supposed to give her a final look before Negan killed him. However, they already filmed the POV shot, which showed no such look. CUDLITZ got the idea of shooting her a peace sign as a throwback to their little signal from season 6. Here's a bit of levity though. On CUDLITZ's last day of shooting in Alexandria, his fellow cast members put on bright orange handlebar mustaches as a tribute to Abraham, just like they did for Scott Wilson with suspenders. Stephen Yeun also got a post-mortem celebration. At his death dinner, the cast went karaokeing and sang I Want It That Way by the Backstreet Boys while dressed as Abraham. I guess those mustaches got multiple uses. Of course, a big death brings out all the throwback stories. Lauren Cohen recalled how the first night she arrived in Georgia, she went out for Korean barbecue with Yeun and Sarah Wayne Callies. They also spent the 4th of July at Yeun's apartment singing, playing guitar, and avoiding the rain. Robert Kirkman, on the other hand, recalled Yeun's first day of shooting. They made him run around on an empty stomach, causing him to almost black out on day 1. If any of you felt your souls being crushed or slowly beaten down by a baseball bat by that Fast and Furious style family dinner shot, there's more where that came from. That was actually one snippet of a full scene that had to be cut for time. You can watch the whole thing online or on Blu-ray though, if you're feeling really masochistic. For those who thought last season's cliffhanger was done by the writers to make more advertising money, NICOTERO revealed that he actually spoke to AMC about airing the season 7 premiere with no commercials at all, but of course, they turned him down. Many fans were shocked and disgusted by how graphic Glenn and Abraham's deaths were. In response to the controversy, executive producer GALE and HURD assured viewers that the rest of the season would be toned down. However, Scott Gimple later clarified that while the violence wouldn't be toned down, it would never hit the high of that narrative moment ever again. Jeffrey Dean Morgan still gets flack from fans though. While out for coffee with Norman Reedus, Morgan was approached by an old lady who stuck her finger in his face and called him a fucking asshole. Reedus burst out laughing while Morgan continued to be accosted by the granny vigilante. Morgan's son idolizes him though. While he hasn't watched the show, he does dress up like Negan and once played Eeny Meeny Miny Mo with the Morgan family chickens.
I'm like thinking I'm gonna see like chickens splattered all over the coop. They were all fine.
Oh, good, okay.
And yes, I did just say Morgan family chickens. Jeffrey Dean Morgan is really more like Herschel in real life. He has a fully stocked farm in upstate New York. He also co-owns a candy store with Paul Rudd. But his home is quite different than Negan's home, with its collection of corpse Polaroids. In the montage during this episode, you can see a photographer taking a picture of Glenn's body, not unlike the ones Glenn found last season. The sanctuary may be a terrifying place if you're abducted and forced to work for Negan, but not if you're on set. They have a ping pong table that the cast actually uses between scenes. In fact, the Alexandria set is more grueling. The gate into town is so heavy that multiple stagehands have to stand off screen and help open it. The grunts at the sanctuary were originally intended to wear jumpsuits, not sweatsuits. However, it reminded Scott Gimple of the Dharma Initiative from Lost, so they had to find something else. The sweatsuit grunts are also categorized by letter, A, S, and F. According to writer Angela Kang, these stand for asshole, fuckface, and shithead. Apparently that makes Daryl an asshole. The letter A has become a theme on the show though. Not only is it on Daryl's shirt, it was also on the train car that the characters were locked inside of at Terminus, on the stamp Rick got from Sam, and spray painted onto Father Gabriel's church. Here's some casting fun facts for the episode The Well. The production team cast twins for the scene in which Carol is flickering from the living to dead world. One twin played the human, and the other twin played the walker. That saved them time on the makeup application. Ben's younger brother Henry is played by Maxon Lintz. In real life, Maxon is Madison Lintz's younger brother, aka Carol's daughter Sophia. KHARY Payton has joined the cast as Ezekiel. You may have heard about him over on Channel Frederator because he's also a voice actor. He's probably best known for his role as Cyborg in all things Teen Titan. Payton's Ezekiel voice was based off his great uncle Neb, a security guard with an unfittingly bassy, majestic voice, way more fitting for a king. In Payton's audition, they tried to mislead him by telling him that his character had a lion. You know, definitely not Shiva. To make sure that Shiva is always the right scale for a tiger, the visual effects team scan the set and take measurements. That allows them to estimate how big she'll be and where Payton should interact. Dwight uses the song Easy Street by the Collapsible Hearts Club to torture Daryl in the episode The Cell. It jumped from being an indie song to being on the top 100 singles chart after the episode aired. Who says success doesn't happen overnight? But seriously, I never want to hear that song again. Selecting a song was a challenge in and of itself. Apparently bands don't like it when you approach them asking to use their song for torture. Well, you're good sport, CHC. The torture song hadn't been picked yet when the episode was being filmed. Fortunately for Norman Reedus, he never actually had to hear it over and over again. The song was released in 2014, meaning it wasn't even out when the zombie apocalypse began. Actually, come to think about it, what year was that anyway? And while we're on the topic, how old is Carl at this point? According to Chandler Riggs, Carl doesn't have a set age. It's because Riggs is growing up faster than the timeline of the show, so he's outgrown any number they set. Case in point, this entire season takes place over the course of just 19 days. The gang has had less than 1 month of Negan. When Dwight can't sleep, he puts on the show Who's the Boss. Norman Reedus actually met Tony Danza years earlier at a rap party, and Danza expressed interest in being on the show. Thanks to Dwight's insomnia, he finally made it on. Sort of. There may be some romance in Daryl's future. Reedus suspects that he and Sherry may end up together sometime down the line, and writer Angela Kang implied that anything is possible. A lot of people are still holding out for the SS Daryl Carroll, but Sherry could be nice in the meantime. Norman Reedus has eaten some weird things in the past, but dog food has not been added to those ranks. The meat in Daryl sandwiches was actually a mix of vegan sausages with apple butter. I'm not sure if that's better or worse than dog food. The alcohol also isn't real alcohol. Dwight and Laura's table hockey shots are actually Coke diluted with water. After the episode's service aired, fans began to speculate that Daryl and Rick were communicating in Morse code. Daryl's blinks seemed very explicit, and a Morse code poster could clearly be seen in Rick's house. Scott Gimple shot down the theory, saying that Andrew Lincoln and Norman Reedus either had the sun in their eyes or they were just flaunting their bromance. While occupying Alexandria, Negan breaks open a can of Orange Crush, the same soda that Denise was trying to get for Tara before she was killed. Fans also took the soda's name as foreshadowing of Abraham's death, so now Negan seems to be enjoying the spoils of that death. That's dark. It was certainly tense between Negan and Olivia on screen, but not for Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Anne Mahoney. Behind the scenes, the two of them had to hold in the giggles since Mahoney is so funny. Tom Paine wears hair extensions when playing Jesus. That means that he needs to keep his own hair clean and voluminous so that it'll blend with the extensions. He's growing it out now though, so maybe one day we'll see those luscious locks grimed up a bit. Oceanside made its first appearance in Swear. Though it has been mentioned in the comics, it hasn't actually been seen until now. The Sandwalker's emergence from the ground is an ode to the classic Dead Rising trope of the zombie hand reaching out from the ground. One of the Sandwalkers is actually a celebrity in the zombie world. Greg Nicotero modeled the makeup job after the poster boy of the classic Lucio Fulci horror flick Zombie. Alana Masterson did all her own stunts this episode. That's especially impressive considering that she just had a baby, had only 4 days of stunt prep, and had to stop every 3 hours to nurse her baby. She is a strong woman. It was also really hot that day. The sand zombies had to be specially qualified given the temperature, and even crew members were turning white and nearly passing out. The episode Swear marked a series low in viewership that hadn't been seen since season 3. It premiered to 10.40 million viewers and only rose to 15.10 total. Still huge overall, but a bit of a hit on the Walking Dead streak. In Sing Me a Song, Spencer tells Eugene that his mother used to say, "Pain would be useful someday." This is the same quote that Deanna had written on the map of Alexandria in the episode now, albeit in Latin. The song, referenced in the episode title, is Carl's, and Chandler Riggs was not excited to sing it. In fact, he tried to cry through as much of it as he could so he could mask his bad singing voice with vocal breaks. Maggie's new wardrobe, which includes a hat and gloves, is an homage to Glenn and Abraham. The hat is reminiscent of the one Glenn wore in the early seasons of the show, while Abraham used to rock the fingerless gloves. In the comics, it wasn't Rosita who shoots at Negan and hits Lucille. In fact, it was Negan's good little pal, Carl, and the whole eyeless thing would explain why he missed. Rosita's badass new scar is another comic substitute. In the books, the facial scar belongs to Andrea, who's still alive and kicking. The mid-season finale involved work with a boat, so you know what that means. The perfect time for some nautical nonsense. In the latest of Andrew Lincoln and Norman Reedus' never-ending prank war, Lincoln straddles saddled REEDUS' motorcycle with a sex doll and loaded it onto the ship before casting it back out into the lake. Your move, Daryl. Zombie icon Dr. Tongue from Day of the Dead can be seen leaning against the wall outside the kingdom, just another one of NICOTERO's many nods to the Walking Dead ancestors. Sadly, a mid-season finale means someone's gotta die, and in this one, we lost a brother, Fat Joey.
Without Fat Joey, Skinny Joey is just Joey.
Apparently, Fat Joey's send-off was shot as way more graphic, with an exploding blood packet and everything. Actor Joshua Hoover assumes they toned it down because Spencer's disemboweling was already so graphic. After all, fans were still reeling from the premiere. Tara seems awfully quiet when she and the gang meet Ezekiel in the mid-season premiere, right? That's because that's not Tara at all. Alana Masterson was still shooting scenes from Swear, so that's actually a body double standing in the shadows there. Here's another secret identity reveal. The Kingdom kids at the archery setup are actually NICOTERO's children. Man, what an awesome childhood. Rick's speech about the Rock in the Road, you know, from the episode Rock in the Road, wasn't given to Andrew Lincoln until the night before filming. NICOTERO took it out of his director's cut, but it not only came back, it came back with a vengeance as the episode title. Rick and Michonne's cable car tripwire wasn't originally part of the script. The initial plan was for Rosita to toss a stick of dynamite at them. However, NICOTERO wanted to do something different since they'd already blown up walkers before. Gotta keep those kills fresh. There's no TV magic when Carl and Tara are pushing the cars uphill into place. That was real muscle from Chandler Riggs and Alana Masterson out in the Georgia heat. Meanwhile, Christian Serratos just had to sit there with the car in neutral. We've talked about how music helps the actors get in character. For Rick and Michonne's car hotwiring scene, NICOTERO decided to play the Mission Impossible theme. This made Andrew Lincoln crack up, which is definitely not in character for Rick. Nor was it in character when Lincoln burst out laughing while shooting the pantry scene after Savior Simon, played by Stephen Ogg, dealt out passionate improv. Lincoln broke character. Rockin' the Road was dedicated to James Heltebridle. Heltebridle was a prop assistant on the production crew and sadly died in a car crash on the way home from set. Gregory's instantly quotable delivery of the word rhetorical is actually an homage.
Rhetorical!
NICOTERO told him to say it that way as a nod to A Fish Called Wanda, wherein Kevin Kline delivers the word disappointed in a similar way.
Disappointed!
The episode New Best Friends saw the dramatic reunion between Carol and Daryl. Don't worry though, because Melissa McBride and Norman Reedus have kept in contact all along. In fact, they often text each other during the episodes. The episode also features a union between Daryl and his third crossbow. He began the series with one, which he then replaced with another from Morgan's stash in Clear. Dwight stole that one last season, so we're up to lucky number 3. The Heapsters aren't from Robert Kirkman's source material. They were invented completely for the show. Funny, because they're one of the most comic book-ish things on the show. The spiky scavenger walker, Winslow, is played by special effects artist Gino Crognali. Crognali has played 3 other walkers on the show. The man loves to get down in the dirt. The cat statue that Rick grabs at the end of the episode is a callback to Clear. In one of Michonne's first and most endearing moments, she picks up a cat statue to bring home with her. However, she loses it after they flee the prison in Too Far Gone. Like the rest of his acting, Andrew Lincoln's smiling is method acting too. He asked Alana Masterson to do something to make him smile at the end of New Best Friends, so she pinched his butt. So yeah, you're looking at a butt-pinching grin right there. Josh McDermott improvised his line, "Pump your brakes, Red," in the episode Hostiles and Calamities. It's actually a callback to a line he once said to Abraham in the season 6 episode Twice as Far. His line where he says he's not lawful, neutral, or chaotic is also a reference, but not to something from The Walking Dead. He's referring to the alignment system from Dungeons and Dragons. We see more of Eugene's nerdy side when he's playing Yar's Revenge. Even though the visual on screen is just a loop, Josh McDermott still came in on his day off to play real arcade games so he could make it look more real. Although maybe McDermott should have been practicing his science instead. While rehearsing one of Eugene's tricks, McDermott shot off one of the surgical gloves, which blazed off in a trail of fire. His mullet was almost singed in the accident. In the episode Say Yes, during the scene when Tara is talking to Judith, Alana Masterson was actually talking to a tennis ball. Why? It's too difficult to get babies to stay quiet and listen for that long. Melissa McBride happened to be free during the scene though, so she offered to lay down on the ground as a stand-in stand-in for the tennis ball. We're loving us some Rosen this season, and apparently so is Andrew Lincoln's mom. Apparently she's been shipping the two of them together for years. While trying to show off a staff move to his Aikido trainer, Lenny James messed the move up and sent the staff crashing into his TV screen, which was playing The West Wing. It went right through Josiah Bartlett's head. Speaking of going through heads, the flashbacks going through Morgan's head while he's screaming in the street in the episode Bury Me Here weren't originally planned. Scott Gimple saw how powerful a performance Lenny James gave and decided to add them in to increase the chaos of the moment. Gimple also added the choking sounds that Richard made as Morgan strangled him. As in, Gimple himself made the choking sounds on a soundstage, and he nearly threw up doing them. The line, "If the feet aren't right, nothing's right," comes from a real-life conversation between Lenny James and Scott Gimple. At the beginning of each season, the showrunner meets with the actors to discuss their roles, and that little nugget originated there. True to the episode title Bury Me Here, Carol was going to be seen burying some flowers. However, that was too obvious of an allusion to the grove, so she planted tomato seeds instead. Just look at the tomatoes, Lizzie. Glenn's death weighs heavily on Daryl, especially when it comes to Maggie. After all, as Cohen points out, this isn't the first time Daryl's been involved in the death of Maggie's loved ones. He carried Beth out of the hospital after she was killed a few seasons earlier. In the finale, pay attention to the lighting during Sasha and Eugene's scene in the sanctuary corridor. Every time Eugene talks, they're surrounded by darkness, and every time Sasha talks, they're in the light. A little poetic yin and yang from the director. Here's another poetic director's choice. When Morgan meets up with the Kingdom team, the characters are standing right behind Nick and Norman's, a restaurant co-owned by NICOTERO. Wait, is that poetic or is that just product placement? Maybe both. Over at the Hilltop Colony, there was a change of plans thanks to baby Judith. Maggie was supposed to be holding Judith during her discussion with Jesus, but the baby kept repeating Lauren Cohen's words, so they ended up putting her on the ground for the scene instead. Michonne's tower fight is adapted directly from the comics, but with a few elements tweaked in translation. For instance, in the comics, it's Andrea's fight, not Michonne's, and Andrea is fighting a savior, not a heapster. So it's the same fight, but completely different. Similarly, Sasha has been adapting many of Holly's plot points from the comics, and the finale is no exception. Her attempted rape by David is repurposed, as well as her delivery back into Alexandria as a walker. The difference is that Holly was killed by Negan, whereas Sasha kills herself tactically. Aside from the characterization difference between Holly and Sasha, the change was made thanks to Fear the Walking Dead. According to Scott Gimple, the spin-off already did a stealthy walker delivery as per Holly's original death, so it took a straight adaptation off the table. There was speculation that Sasha was killed off so Sonequa Martin Green could be in Star Trek Discovery. However, these things happened the other way around. She was written off the show and then cast in Discovery. The announcement of her casting just had poor timing. Once again, I'm Kyle, and thanks so much for watching 107 Facts About The Walking Dead Season 7. Who's your favorite character this season? Who do you hope comes back? Comment below and let us know. Don't forget to click the bell icon to become a part of our notification squad, and subscribe to Cinematica, where we help you watch smarter.